from a certain area who was being horribly accosted, horribly treated. And we spoke to General Milley. General Milley took care of it. We went in and we got her out. And we'll report further on that one. But that was rough stuff. I want to thank General Milley. I want to thank all of the people that were involved and the people that went in to get her. I want to thank you very much. As we continue to marshal every resource at America's disposal in the fight against the Chinese virus, we're profoundly grateful to our nation's state and local leaders, doctors, nurses, law enforcement, and first responders who are waging this battle on the ground. It is absolutely critical that Americans continue to follow the federal government's guidelines, so important, about social distancing, non-essential travel, and hand washing. Defeating this unseen enemy requires the help and commitment of every single American. I want to just say that Senator Rand Paul, a friend of mine, he's been a great friend of mine. He's been always there when we needed him, when the country needed him. And as you know, he just tested positive. Jose Diaz-Balart, spoke to him yesterday, tested positive. And some people are they're getting quite close to home. And it's a terrible thing that's going on. The hidden enemy, I call it the hidden enemy. And I think they'll all be fine. I hope they're going to be fine. But I just want to send our regards, and I think I can speak on behalf of our country, to those two great friends of mine. We're working urgently with Congress on legislation to support the millions of workers, small businesses, and industries who have been hit hard by the virus through no fault of their own. Our goal is to get relief to Americans as quickly as possible so that families can get by and small businesses can keep workers on the payroll. This will help our economy, and you will see our economy skyrocket once this is over. I think it's going to skyrocket. It's a pent-up demand. It's a built-up demand, and I guess you really have to say who knows, but I think it's going to be a tremendous day when we win this war, and we will win the war. We want to win the war with as few, if you look at it, just deaths as possible. We want to have as few number of deaths as possible. Today I'm announcing action to help New York, California, and Washington ensure that the National Guard can effectively respond to this crisis. The National Guard, these are tremendous people. They're fully on alert. We've signed what we had to sign, and it's been activated. We're dealing also with other states. These states have been hit the hardest. Actually, pretty much by far, you could say the hardest. Everybody can see that. Just look at the numbers. And through FEMA, the federal government will be funding 100% of the cost of deploying National Guard units to carry out approved missions to stop the virus while those governors remain in command. So the governors locally are going to be in command and will be following them, and we hope they can do the job, and I think they will. I spoke with all three of the governors today and just a little while ago, and they're very happy with what we're going to be doing because we'll be announcing some other things for those three states and some other states where it's hit the hardest. This action will give them maximum flexibility to use the Guard against the virus without having to worry about costs or liability, and freeing up state resources to protect the health and safety of the people in their state. The federal government has deployed hundreds of tons of supplies from our national stockpile to locations with the greatest need. In order to assist in those areas, I approved the state of New York's request for a major disaster declaration, something which Governor Cuomo has been asking for and which I agree, and we had it done in very rapid fashion. We approved this on Friday evening, and we are working very, very hard to get all of these things not only signed up, but completed and finished and win. The request from the state of Washington for a major disaster declaration was approved just a little while ago. Went through the process, and we moved it very quickly. The request from the state of California was just received, and we will have it approved very quickly. We'll be working, I told that to Gavin Newsom, and we're working on getting that done very quickly. It'll be done maybe tonight. We have large quantities of medical equipment and supplies on the way based on all of this to those states, including respirators, surgical masks and gowns, face shields, coveralls, and gloves, with large quantities already delivered to Washington and to New York. In addition to large quantities of supplies, I've also directed FEMA to supply the following: 4 large federal medical stations with 1,000 beds for New York, 8 large federal medical stations with 2,000 beds for California, and 3 large federal medical stations and 4 small federal medical stations with 1,000 beds for the state of Washington. The governors know. The supplies en route to California and New York will be delivered within the next 48 hours. In addition, the Naval Hospital ship, the USNS Mercy. It's incredible ships. These 2 ships are incredible, one on the West Coast, one on the East Coast, will be deployed to Los Angeles to add emergency surge medical capacity, and they have a tremendous capacity. They are really something. I will say that if you look at some of the things we've been doing, and now those numbers have gone up, and just to be a little bit more exacting, we've done a presidential approval for requests for major disaster declaration for the state of New York, approval of Title 32 National Guard activation for the state of New York. We're providing all of this at no cost to the governor. I spoke with Governor Cuomo. He's working hard. We're all working hard together. The relationship has really been amazing. But it also enables the governor to provide robust National Guard support to the state. And the 25%, we're going to be waiving that 25% cost. We're picking up, we'll be coordinating, and they'll be doing something with very special people. Mission assignment of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to provide support to build out alternate care sites. They're doing various alternate care sites, which have now been designated by New York. 4 large federal medical stations of 1,000 beds. These are very complex places, actually, with great equipment and great people. Strategic National Stockpile Order, and this is as of a number of days ago, so far delivered to New York, and this is the 19th. We had the N95 respirators, 186,416 delivered. We've delivered 444,078 surgical masks. Many have been delivered since then. Face shields, we've delivered 84,560 face shields. Surgical gowns, 68,944 to New York. Coveralls, 352. Gloves, 245,486. Also to New York, in terms of what's been delivered just since then, the numbers are quite large, and we have tremendous numbers of companies also making equipment. For the state of Washington, we've delivered 369,000 N95 respirators, 507,406 surgical masks. And this is as of about 3 days ago. Face shields, 63,788 face shields. Surgical gowns, 107,850. Gloves, 240,376. And we have many, many things pending. It's actually not pending. They're being fabricated. They're being made. And they're moving. Now, for Washington, so we have 4 small federal medical stations, 250 beds. And for Washington, state of Washington, we have 3 large federal medical stations, 750 beds. And then you have, as I said, the approval of the Title 32 National Guard. State of California, again, to be very precise, we're going to have the approval of the Title 32 National Guard activation. And we're providing all of this again, like in New York, at no cost to the governor, meaning to Governor Newsom and the state, no cost to the state. It enables the governor to provide robust National Guard support to the state. So they're going to have control of the National Guard. Federal government sending, these are incredible people that are being sent. We have 8 large federal medical stations with over 2,000 beds, and that's going to California. And then strategic national stockpile order. We've ordered likewise hundreds of thousands of different items. I won't go into the exact numbers, but the numbers are very substantial. But we're having a tremendous additional numbers sent. And whatever the states can get, they should be getting. I say we're sort of a backup for the states. And some of the states are doing really well, and some don't do as well. The ones that don't do as well need more help. But these are 3 states that really do need help because they are hit very hard. And the outpouring from the private sector has also been extraordinary. I'm pleased to report that Honeywell, great company, has just announced it will immediately expand its personal protective equipment manufacturing operations in Rhode Island to produce millions of additional N95 masks. They're very hard to get. They're actually quite complex. For the U.S. government's strategic national stockpile, they'll be immediately then delivered to the various states. This expansion is already underway, and it's going to provide a lot of jobs for that state, probably around 500. The masks will be distributed by the government for the use of the health, safety, and emergency, and this for response workers, primarily for response workers. These are very high-end. This expansion is in addition to Honeywell's action to more than double production of its existing personal protective equipment manufacturing plants. They make a lot of different things, and they're doubling and tripling their production. They're going round the clock. Today, I'm also announcing the launch of a new public-private consortium organized by the White House, the Department of Energy, and IBM to unleash the power of American supercomputing resources to fight the Chinese virus. The following leaders from private industries, academia, and government will be contributing, and they're going to be contributing a lot of different things, but primarily computing resources to help researchers discover new treatments and vaccines. They'll be working along with NIH and all of the people that are working on this. But tremendous help from IBM, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, MIT, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, the Department of Energy's National Labor Laboratories, the National Science Foundation, and NASA. They're all contributing to this effort, and they're fully in gear. This afternoon, I also want to update you on the steps we're taking to protect and serve our country's 18 million veterans. These are great people. Our amazing veterans have shown their eternal loyalty to our nation, and this is the time where they're in need, and we are going to show our loyalty to them. We're being very protective of our veterans. We're working on certain hospitals where we may be doing some work in Louisiana in particular and some other states, veterans hospitals. We're going to be very protective of our veterans. Some of them are of that very vulnerable age, and some of them obviously are not feeling well. And some of them are still suffering the wounds of war from many years ago. Yesterday, I signed vital legislation to ensure that the GI Bill will cover distance learning during this emergency. I also spoke with many of our veteran service organizations, or the VSOs, to describe our unprecedented action. In February, the Department of Veterans Affairs established 19 emergency operation centers throughout the country. One of the things that they've been trying to get done for many years, you all know this from following me over the last number of years, but we got it done pretty quickly. They've been trying to get it done for many, many decades, was choice, veterans' choice, and also veterans' accountability. Now, if it's crowded within this, if they can't get to a doctor, we have great doctors in the VA. I have to say that. We have fantastic doctors, as good as they come. But it's hard to get to them because of what was bureaucracy, but no longer bureaucracy. We've done a lot of things in that case because of accountability. When people aren't doing their jobs, or if they're bad, or if they're sadistic, or if they steal, or anything bad happens, we're now allowed to fire them for. I signed that a year and a half ago. For many years, you weren't able to do that. So the VA is working, and I was just told by our great leader at the VA, Robert Wilkie. He said for the first time, we get the highest marks in the history, highest poll numbers in the history of the Veterans Administration. Came out a week ago that they're happy. And look, one of the reasons that happened, highest in history, one of the reasons that happened is because of veterans' choice. If they have to wait online, they go and see a private doctor and we pay the bill. And they get better. They don't have to wait 2 weeks and 3 weeks or 2 days, but they get better. And a lot of times they waited so long that they would have a problem and it would end up being terminal because they couldn't get the kind of treatment that they deserve. So highest poll numbers, highest approval numbers in the history of the VA. I was just given that information yesterday. We restricted visitors' access to 135 veteran community living centers, which house nearly 8,000 veterans with chronic medical conditions, so that we limit their exposure to the virus. We want to totally take care of our veterans, and that's what we're doing. The VA has canceled most elective medical and surgical procedures. They're delaying them till after this is gone. After we've won. We began providing life-saving care to patients who had symptoms across the 171 VA medical centers nationwide. That's a big deal. Under my administration, the VA has also been a leader in expanding telehealth. Telehealth is becoming a bigger and bigger factor in medicine. This month, we have taken bold action to cut through the red tape and make telehealth available for millions more Americans during this crisis. They can speak to a doctor from the safety of their home rather than risk becoming infected or making a tremendously long trip, when, frankly, you'll speak to a great doctor right from your home. It's happening, telehealth. We're very much at the forefront of that, too. We're very proud of it. And it also takes a big burden off our system. We continue to accelerate the development of safe and effective vaccines. We're also aggressively investigating a number of antiviral therapies and treatments to determine their potential in reducing the severity and duration of the symptoms. And you know how I feel, because how I feel is on Tuesday, they're going to be starting it on Tuesday morning. And we're going to have some medications delivered that we're going to see if they work. They certainly are effective in other ways, and they are safe from the standpoint is that they're not killing people. We're not going to have that. So a lot of great things have been happening in that regard. I just want to finish, and then we're going to ask a couple of people to say a few words that have been so much in the forefront of this incredible job that we've all been given. But I want to say that I know that this is a challenging time for all Americans. We're enduring a great national trial, and we will prove that we can meet the moment. I want to assure the American people that we're doing everything we can each day to confront and ultimately defeat this horrible, invisible enemy. We're at war. In a true sense, we're at war, and we're fighting an invisible enemy. Think of that. For those of you who are feeling alone and isolated, I want you to know that we are all joined together as one people, eternally linked by our shared national spirit. We love our country, a spirit of courage and love and patriotism. No American is alone as long as we are united, and we are united. We're very united. People are saying things now that 3 weeks ago, they didn't talk that way. We're very united. No force is equal to the strength of really a unified America, united America, an America like we have it right now. For those worried and afraid, please know as long as I am your president, you can feel confident that you have a leader who will always fight for you, and I will not stop until we win. This will be a great victory. This is going to be a victory. And it's going to be a victory that, in my opinion, will happen much sooner than originally expected. It's now attacking, the enemy is attacking 144 countries at this moment. 144, that's unthinkable. There's never been anything like this. And it's vicious. It is vicious. Some people recover well, and some people have a hard time. We all know that. But we will be totally victorious. We will then get our economy up to a level that it was, and in my opinion, beyond, because that will be a pent-up demand. There is a pent-up demand, and a lot of great things will happen. But I'm very proud of our country. I'm very proud. I'm very proud to be your president, and it's just something that's just, you're very special people. So thank you very, very much. And I'm going to ask, if I might, a combination of Pete. Why don't you start off? Okay, please.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank
you. Just a little bit about what we're doing in Washington, California, and New York. We understand that the states of Washington, New York, and California are the areas seeing a steady increase in COVID-19 virus cases. In order to assist with additional needs identified in those areas, the state of New York was approved for a major disaster and declaration this morning. Washington State was also approved earlier today. California submitted their request, and the President will consider it immediately. We have medical supplies en route to these states, including respirators, surgical masks, gowns, face shield, coveralls, gloves, with quantities already delivered to both Washington, New York, and California. And we anticipate additional supplies to be delivered within the next 42 hours to all these states. Under President Trump's unprecedented national emergency declaration on March 13, FEMA is assisting state, local, tribal, and territorial governments, including reimbursing eligible emergency protective measures taken at the direction or guidance of public health officials in response to this emergency. All 50 states, the District of Columbia, 5 territories, and 2 tribes are working directly with FEMA under the nationwide emergency declaration for COVID-19. With the assistance of the FEMA regional administrators who are throughout the country, we are working to address the needs of state and local officials everywhere. States, tribal, and territorial governments do not need to request separate emergency declarations to receive FEMA assistance under this nationwide declaration. The emergency declaration does not authorize direct financial assistance available to individuals such as disaster unemployment assistance or other needs assistance at this time. Just a note on the USNS Mercy. Based on analysis of potential needs for hospital beds on the West Coast, the decision was made that the USNS hospital ship Mercy would have the greatest impact in California. The Department of Defense has been given direction to dispatch it to Los Angeles immediately. DoD has advised that the Mercy can get into position within a week or less of today's order. Even though there are more cases right now in Washington, the projected needs for beds in California is 5 times more that of Washington. The Mercy will be used to take pressure off local hospitals, other medical needs, and not for treating COVID-19 cases. And finally, a little bit about the National Guard. The federal government continues to take aggressive action and proactive steps to address the COVID-19 threat as we attack the health and safety, or protect the health and safety of the American people. It remains our top priority. The National Guard is especially posted and equipped to assist federal, state, local agencies while serving the public. In response to this unprecedented nationwide operation, President Trump has approved Washington, California, and New York National Guard units under Title 32 status for the COVID-19 response. The President's action provide the nation's governors continued command of their National Guard forces, enabling states to use additional resources to meet the missions necessary in the COVID-19 response. The National Guard is a viable and responsive avenue to provide a much-needed asset that is state-managed and federally supported. And I want to be clear, this Title 32 activation does not federalize National Guard members. The National Guard is still under the authority of each governor. They will work in concert with the Department of Defense. And we've had a lot of disinformation circling, and I want to make sure it is understood that this is not martial law. The Department of Defense, by way of a mission assignment, will lead this task. And then finally, We continue to respond to hundreds of requests from governors across the country in filling all their critical needs. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Pete, very much. Peter Navarro?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening. What I want to talk briefly about is the Defense Production Act. And to give you the overview here, using the full power of private enterprise and the full force of the federal government, my job at the White House is to make sure tactically, working with FEMA and HHS, the American people, particularly our healthcare professionals, get the gloves, the masks, and all of the personal protective equipment they need. And I can tell you, sir, that since you signed the Defense Production Act, my job's gotten easier. And let me explain why. The Defense Production Act, in this context, has two primary functions. One is mobilization of the industrial base, in this case, the public health industrial base, and the other is allocation of resources, both from the supply chain to the manufacturers and from the manufacturers to the end users, such as the healthcare professionals. Now, what we're seeing on a purely voluntary basis, based on the leadership of this administration, we're seeing the greatest mobilization of the industrial base since World War II. And every day I'm working with organizations and companies, National Association of Manufacturing, the National Council of Textile Organizations, and so on, in terms of building up rapidly our capabilities to get what you need. Now, let's think about what mobilization means. It can mean, for example, repurposing a factory. So Pernod Ricard called us last week, and they had 3 hurdles they had to deal with. They called my office, had to make a call to Treasury, FDA, and HHS to clear the path. We got that done that day. They started their production that day, moving from alcoholic beverages to hand sanitizers. And as we speak, a truck is moving towards New York and will arrive there Tuesday to share with the hospitals over 1,000 gallons of sanitizer. So that would be a repurpose. A second example would be one that the president offered with Honeywell. Again, Honeywell called the White House asking for help from the president. And what they said is, look, we want to do this new factory in Smithfield, Rhode Island. They called me on a Friday morning. And by that night, we had a contract in to HHS. HHS flipped that immediately, and I had Honeywell moving people and equipment from Massachusetts to that facility in Smithfield, Rhode Island, and we're going to have those masks produced within 30 days, moving on the assembly chain. So my point is, mobilization is repurposing, building up capabilities. And the other portion is, of course, the allocation of resources. Now, what I can tell you so far is that the Defense Production Act, sir, has given me quiet leverage. When you have a strong leader, you can take a light hand initially. And so what we've seen with this outpouring of volunteers from private enterprise, we're getting what we need without putting the heavy hand of government down. There will be possibly cases down the road, and the manufacturers have actually asked me and alerted me this, where some places in the supply chain, they may have problems that the White House will have to break through using the Defense Production Act. We won't hesitate to do that. The last thing I'll tell you is that I also get a lot of calls that are very disquieting. Brokers are offering millions of items, whether they're goggles, masks, or whatever, and you go through 3 different brokers, tracing to a warehouse in LA that's allegedly got 10 million masks, and they want to charge you 7 times what they cost. That's price gouging. A message to the hoarders: if you got any large quantities of material that this country needs right now, get them to market or get them to us. We'll pay you a fair price. But if you don't do that, we're going to come for you and make sure that doesn't happen in this country. And that would be a good use of the Defense Production Act. So I salute you, sir. You've made my job easier, and I appreciate that.
Thank you, Peter, very much.
Great job.
Mike, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. The task force met this afternoon, as we do every day. And let me begin today by simply saying thank you to the American people. And thank you for the way that people across this country, 7 days into 15 days to slow the spread, that people in communities large and small across America are responding, are cooperating, are communicating, not just on behalf of their own health and the health of their family, but more importantly, on behalf of the most vulnerable among us. So on behalf of your president and our entire task force, just thank you to the American people. I also want to express our appreciation to the governors across the country. The President today just announced action in New York, California, and Washington State as the latest demonstration that this administration will do whatever it takes to support the leadership at the state and local level as the American people confront the spread of the coronavirus. The legislative efforts that are underway, being negotiated on Capitol Hill as we speak, the bipartisan spirit that's taking place there, that's reflected in all of our interactions with state leaders around the country, is a great credit to the nation. But it should be a great encouragement to the American people that your government at the federal level, at the state level, working with courageous healthcare providers all across America, are coming together to meet this moment. And that is the way our system works. It's extremely important that the American people recognize that one of the things that makes America different is that we have a system of federalism, and that by putting FEMA in the lead, the President has emphasized that our response to the coronavirus is in the anthem of FEMA. It is locally executed, state managed, and federally supported. We want the people on the ground, the decision makers, to have what they need. We want states to be able to manage the unique circumstances in their states. And whether it be the legislation moving through the Congress or the efforts the President announced today, major disaster declarations, Title 32 on the National Guard, resources flowing, hospital beds flowing, we're going to continue to make sure that our states have what they need to meet this moment. Our task force continues to focus on the priorities the President's given us. They are testing, mitigation, and supplies. And on the subject of testing, as is evident to people across the country, testing is more and more available every single day. We'll be detailing tomorrow from this podium the progress that we are making on tests. At this day's reporting, 254,000 Americans have been tested and received results in coronavirus tests, with slightly more than 30,000 actually testing positive. There's a bit of an encouraging word in that for every American. Remember, everyone that's being tested now, with the exception of our healthcare workers, are people that have symptoms that make them think they may have the coronavirus. And as our numbers come in consistently, because the 254,000 does not include all the local hospitals or all the local labs in our states, it's working out to be about 1 in 10 Americans who've been tested who thought they had coronavirus actually had it. 9 out of 10 did not. But we'll continue to roll out the testing to provide that resource to the American people. And we're working to make testing happen faster. We expect from word from the commercial labs that we should be caught up on the backlog in testing by the middle of the week. And we are urging today, on the President's behalf, that all labs would prioritize inpatient testing. Let me say again, to all of the commercial labs in the country, you will receive guidance from HHS tomorrow. But on behalf of the President and the White House Coronavirus Task Force, we are urging all commercial labs to prioritize inpatient testing. We want people that have been checked into a hospital that are being treated for what they suspect to be coronavirus to receive those tests more quickly. Also, I'm pleased to report that yesterday the FDA approved an emergency authorization on a new test that should be in production by the end of March. It actually would be a coronavirus test, the results of which come back in 45 minutes. And we're also working, the FDA is working with manufacturers around the country to come up with even faster, more innovative tests. And as we told our governors in several calls this week, governors and state health officials should simply contact FEMA for the latest information on testing solutions. Let me also say, tomorrow when we gather at this podium, we'll be unveiling, with Dr. Bob Redfield in the lead, new guidance for people that work in law enforcement, first responders, people that work in what we call critical infrastructure in the country. It was in early March the CDC issued guidance for people that were asymptomatic or did not have symptoms, but who had been exposed to someone with coronavirus. We gave them guidance about being able to return to work wearing a mask for 14 days. And tomorrow, at this podium, CDC will unveil, in cooperation with the Department of Homeland Security, new guidance which will make it possible for people that have been exposed to return to work more quickly by wearing a mask for a certain period of time. Let me also amplify a point on behalf of the President and on behalf of the State Department about Americans abroad. You know, one of the reasons why the United States is in a different position today than portions of Europe are, and China and elsewhere, is because the President suspended all travel from China. He suspended travel from Europe and the UK and Ireland. But the State Department is working around the clock to assist Americans who may find themselves overseas. They're able to come home. There's no barrier to Americans coming back to American soil. They're screened when they come home through a series of airports. But we're aware that with flights being canceled, some Americans have found themselves unable to find a way home. And as the President said, we've been working very diligently through the State Department to make it possible. Their commercial flights have been chartered. We're also working with the military for a backup on flights. At this point, the State Department has brought more than 3,000 Americans back home. But speaking to the Secretary of State today, he wanted me to share a website and a phone number for any American that might be looking on from overseas. You can call the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program at 1-888-407-4747. Or you can go online at step.state.gov. This will allow our embassies and consulates to gather important information about your situation and work to facilitate to bring you home. Let me say finally, as I began, let me close. As the chairman or the leader of this White House Coronavirus Task Force, we are 7 days into 15 days, and the American people are responding. Because as we speak about supplies, as we speak about testing, the most important thing every American can do is heed the guidance and the direction from your state and local officials, particularly in areas where we have widespread coronavirus infections. But for every American putting into practice these measures that the President alluded to at the very beginning of his remarks is a way that we can do this, America. That we can lessen the magnitude of the coronavirus in our country with the cooperation, compassion, generosity, and prayers of the American people. We can slow the spread, we can protect the most vulnerable, and we can heal our land. So let's do it, America.
Thank you, Mike, very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mike. So just a couple of little things that will take some questions. Maybe you will have some, maybe you won't. That'll be a shock. You'll shock the American public. But I have to say on the testing, if this works out, and we think it might, the new test will be a very simple one, much easier than the existing test, which is quite complex and not a lot of fun to take. And this will be a game changer. But remember, we inherited a broken, obsolete system. It was good for a small number of people, but not good for the millions of people that we're talking about. And we've made this into a system that no matter where you go in the world, that's where they're going. That's what they want to do. That's how they're going to be doing it should something like this happen again. So our people have done a fantastic job, really a fantastic job. And I hope the new test works out. We'll know fairly soon, I think, Doctor. We're going to be knowing about that fairly soon. Hopefully it'll check out or test out. And we certainly are looking forward to that. That will be a very simple test by comparison. Won't be unpleasant at all. And one other thing, the ships. So we have the Mercy, and it's going to California, as you know. That's on the West Coast now. And you have a sister ship that's essentially a twin. They're incredible. I mean, they're incredible ships. I've seen it. I've seen one of them, and they are unbelievable what they can do and the capacity. Many operating rooms, you know, they're wartime ships. They're meant for war. Many operating rooms, stainless steel, These rooms are as good as there is anywhere in the nation, actually. I spoke with Governor Cuomo. We had a great conversation today, a number of conversations, actually. He's working very hard. And we are going to be bringing that ship that's called the Comfort. So you have the Mercy and the Comfort. The Comfort's on the East Coast. And that ship will be coming over the next 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks. It was in the middle of maintenance, and we are moving the maintenance very, very quickly, and we're also supplying the ship simultaneously. It's actually big supplies going into those ships, big. And that ship will be coming up here over the next few weeks, and we'll probably be putting it in New York Harbor. And we're making arrangements for that also as to where it's going to be docked. So you have the Mercy and you have the Comfort. They'll be coming up. The Mercy will start very, very quickly. It'll be arriving in Los Angeles pretty soon. So we look forward to that. A question? ABC.
Thank you. First of all, Senator Paul testing positive. When's the last time you had in-person contact with him?
Gee, I think it was quite a while ago. I don't
But
know.
also,
It's been a long time.
On top of Senator Paul, now 4 senators are in isolation, and the rules say that in order to vote, they have
Who are
to be
they,
there.
please? Who are they?
Romney, Senator Lee,
Senator Gardner,
Senator Gardner,
Senator
and
Rick Scott.
Senator Rick Scott. Also, 2 of them were in contact
I
with.
guess Rick is
with
coming out.
With the critical stimulus package vote expected.
Romney's in isolation?
Yes.
Yes.
Gee, that's too bad. Go ahead.
Detect sarcasm there,
No,
sir?
none whatsoever.
Do you think that Congress should consider changing the rules to allow them to vote remotely if it comes to this critical stimulus
I
package?
was thinking about it today, and I'm saying, you could have a lot of senators and a lot of House members. I spoke last night with a very, very good man who happens to be in the House, as you know, and he's just started, and he tested positive. So you could have a large number of people in there from Congress. You could have, between House and Senate, you could have a large number. And I think it's something, at least, I fully understand why you should be there. I think it may be a constitutional reason why you should, but we could be in a position where I would certainly be in favor of it, where they could vote from a certain outside location. I would be in favor of it. I was thinking about it today. We could be in this, look, with what's going on, nobody's ever seen anything like this. You could have a lot of people in there from Congress. And it would certainly be, they may tell me there's a reason constitutionally, and there may be, but I would be totally in favor of it on a temporary
It
basis.
does seem like negotiations still have a ways to go on the stimulus package. Are you concerned about the timing at all and the
Well,
message it sends?
we have an interesting thing. We all want to get to the same place, but we have different. We want to, and I just wrote this down just a little while ago. We want to protect the worker very much. So do they. So do the Democrats. We also want to protect the worker through their companies. We don't want to necessarily. We're going to help the worker anyway, but ideally they can go back to one of their great companies. You have great companies that are in financial trouble now, and we need money to help those companies so they get back into where they should be, health. Most of these companies 4 weeks ago were having the best year they've ever had. Last year was the best year, almost all of them, other than Boeing, which is incredibly had problems, big percentage of GDP. But we have to be able to work with Boeing. Boeing was a great company and will be a great company again, I think, shortly. So we have to work with the companies, and they don't want to do that. It's crazy. They don't want to do that. I don't want stock buybacks, so I don't know where the problem is there, but I know that's one of the things that they're talking about. I do not want stock buybacks. I don't want to give a bailout to a company and then have somebody go out and use that money to buy back stock in the company and raise the price and then get a bonus, okay? So I may be Republican, but I don't like that. I want them to use the money for the workers. I want them to use the money for the company, to help the company in the airline business, to take care of their planes and all of the things they have to do, including buying new planes. But I don't want stock. I don't want to have any stock buybacks. The Democrats are with me. I don't know what the problem is on that one, because I can't imagine that is too tough. We want to be able to take care of our people. You're going to have things coming up. We're going to have some of the elements that they're talking about. They're down to, literally 95% of things that you would think that they wouldn't agree, and you'd think the Republicans wouldn't agree to it. And unemployment, as an example, is one of the things they talk about, and unemployment insurance. I think we're very close on that, but, right now they're not. So right now they're not there. But I think that the Democrats want to get there, and I can tell you for a fact the Republicans want to get there, and I don't think anybody actually has a choice. It's a bold package. It's a big package. We do have money for, one of the things is we do have money for saving small businesses. I don't imagine the Democrats, because we have a lot of money set aside for small businesses. We also have a lot of money set aside for big businesses, the big, powerful companies that were powerful 4 weeks ago, and today they're overextended. Look at the cruise line. That's a tremendous business, a big business, very important to Florida. And it's unthinkable a month ago. It's just unthinkable. They were setting all sorts of records. They're building new ships. We can't let the cruise lines go out of business. I mean, that would be massive numbers of jobs for our country, and actually for the world, but for our country, it's a massive business, and it doesn't take much to keep them going. So we have to provide for that. But I think both the Democrats and the Republicans are agreed that we have to take care of our workers, and we're going to be doing that in numerous ways, including a substantial cash payment. Yeah, please.
When it comes to the Defense Production Act, we know that governors across the country all day today were pleading with you to utilize the DPA, saying that they need it specifically for that allocation piece that you mentioned, Mr. Navarro.
Okay.
Why not use it now if that would answer their pleas for help?
Well, we are using it now. The fact that I signed it, it's in effect. But, we're a country not based on nationalizing our business. Call a person over in Venezuela, ask them how did nationalization of their businesses work out? Not too well. The concept of nationalizing our business is not a good concept. But I'll tell you why. As Peter said, we may have to use it someplace along the chain, but we're getting calls. Here's the beauty of it. If we go out and we want, let's say, masks, we don't know who to call on masks, but Hanes, who makes things of cotton, various elements, lots of things. It's a great company. They called us and they said, we're going to make millions of masks. We got a call today from 3M. There's a big article today, the head of 3M. They're going to make tremendous products, and they're more or less in that business. And if they're not, like, for instance, General Motors spoke to us, Ford spoke to us about doing ventilators. The beauty is they're calling us. If you go the national route, nationalization route, we're going to tell a company to make a ventilator. They don't even know what a ventilator is. In the case of one company, they used to make them years ago, and they know how to make them. It's a very complex piece of equipment, frankly. So what we're doing is, I think Peter said it maybe better than anybody's going to say it. We have the threat of doing it if we need it. We may have to use it somewhere along the supply chain in a minor way. But we have millions of masks being done. We have respirators. We have ventilators. We have a lot of things happening right now. So just the threat of using it. But using it's actually a big deal. I mean, when this was announced, it sent tremors through our business community and through our country. Because basically, what are you doing? You're talking about you're going to nationalize an industry, or you're going to nationalize. You're going to take away companies. You're going to tell companies what to do. The truth is, most people, nobody would know where to start. There are companies out there that you wouldn't think of that have called us that say, we can do ventilators. We used to do them years ago, and they can do them in large quantities. If I call companies and say, you build ventilators, they don't even know what a ventilator is. So it's really working out very well. One of the reasons I read the numbers to you is because we've given vast numbers of just about everything. We've taken it out of our supply, and we're restocking our supply. But we're really backing up the governors. The governors have to go out, do their things, and you have a lot of governors. They've done a fantastic job. You have some that haven't. Usually it's the ones that complain that have the problems. But we've had a great relationship, as an example, with Governor Cuomo, with Governor Newsom. We've had a great relationship with the state of Washington. Those are three hotbeds. Now, we're also dealing with other states. As the Admiral said yesterday, we're dealing with all of the states, actually, in one form or another. Some are very affected in a very minor way, where you have 2 people or 3 people. And I don't even mean deaths. I mean literally cases. And that's different than New York, where you have, tremendous, where everybody, I lived there for a long time, everybody's extremely close, tight. And you have a lot of cases in New York. And we're helping Governor Cuomo. We're helping Governor Newsom. They've been total gentlemen. They want to get it done, and we want to get it done. But doing it the way we're doing it is much better. It's really much better.
But in terms of, I'm asking about the supply chain. It's about allocation, not about manufacturing. So the companies, it's not
But
about
it all comes from-
nationalizing
yeah, I
the
know,
companies,
you're
it's
right.
about
And
the
we-
allocation.
We coordinate with the states, and we are coordinated with the states. And for the most part, the coordination's been very good. Look, 3 days ago, I had a phone call with all the governors. I actually allowed the press to stay. They weren't supposed to stay. And one person in the media said, that was surprising. It's actually a little risky doing that because we had Democrats and we had Republicans. And, they're politicians and they always have something to say. Well, I took a lot of calls and we really didn't get one nasty or bad response. They were thanking us for the job we did. And I had the press standing. I don't know if you were there. I don't think so. I had the press standing there watching. They weren't supposed to be there, but I said, let them stand there. The governors were very complimentary, very, very complimentary. And I watched over the last few days Governor Cuomo. I watched Gavin Newsom in California. I watched both of them, and they've been, very complimentary. And those are really the hotbeds. And so we want to keep that going. I'm very proud of this country, and I'm frankly very proud of a lot of the politicians that normally we're fighting with. We have different views on things, a little different view. But we're going to get to the same place. We have different views, but we're going to get to the same place. Yeah, please.
Yes, I wanted to ask if you're considering an executive order to free elderly, nonviolent criminals from federal prisons.
We have been asked about that, and we're going to take a look at it. It's a bit of a problem. But when we talk about totally nonviolent, we're talking about using totally nonviolent prisoners. We are actually looking at that, yes.
Thank you. And a quick I wanted to ask also, your administration eliminated a key position in China in July, a medical epidemiologist embedded in China's disease control agency, and it was just months before the first cases were spotted in Wuhan. So the question is basically why the post was eliminated. And
Well, I
if that
could ask anybody. Would you like to take that one, Bob? But this is just like all of the other stuff that not you, but that the press was asking, all of which turned out to be, we actually gave CDC more money, not less money. They said we defunded. It turned out it was more money. Every one of those things that were said were 100% wrong. And this sounds like another one of them, but anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, as you know, CDC has offices all around the world right now to do our function to detect and prevent and respond to outbreaks where they occur. The China office is actually being augmented as we speak, and we've been embedded there for over 30 years. There's a reason they call it the Chinese CDC, because we've had that productive partnership.
Mr. President.